I don't have the information in front of me, but these are 3 different obituaries that were copied in their entirety. Now, none of these obituaries were found in Arkansas papers. I'm sorry, they were printed in Arkansas papers. The deaths did not take place in Arkansas. So you have to wonder if they might be kind of an urban legend, that somebody tells a story. An urban legend always happens somewhere else, and it always happens to somebody you don't know, but you know somebody who knows the person. In all 3 cases, they were men who were fishing for catfish and either got the fishing line wrapped around their wrist or somehow got themselves snagged on the line that held a very large fish, anywhere from 80 to over 100 pounds, I believe, and were dragged underwater by the fish. And later when they were found, the fish was still on the line and their body was on the other end, and then the fish, I guess they weighed it, because all 3 stories tell what the fish weighed. But as I said, they did not happen in, well, at least not in northwest Arkansas. I forget the places. All 3 were published in various Benton County newspapers. But newspaper editors love to pick up stories from other places that were just too good not to share. My favorite example of this is the story of a little girl in Kansas who was buried in a metal coffin, and the Fisk burial case was a patented coffin made of metal. I'm sorry, I don't remember the year for this, end of the 1800s. And they were hauling her body to the cemetery when the coffin was struck by lightning. Now, she was in the back of a wagon. The mourners were following behind. Lightning came out of practically a clear blue sky. It suddenly clouded over. A bolt of lightning struck the coffin, burst it open, and the little girl sat up. She hadn't really been dead. She had just been in some kind of a vegetative state, and they almost buried her. Her mother then almost lost her mind with grief and the thought of what could have happened to her daughter, but the child was saved. The horses were knocked down, and I believe the harness itself somehow disintegrated. And the horses were stunned, but they didn't die. And this was reported in a Northwest Arkansas newspaper, in the Fayetteville newspaper. It's a pretty famous story. I have tried my best to track it down. I have tried to contact the town in Kansas where this supposedly happened, or to try and find it in a Kansas newspaper, and it's just been a dead end. I've seen it in print, on a website that reports near-death experiences, and they really couldn't verify it either. But it's an example of a story that a local editor it was just too good not to share. There was nobody named in that story who lived in northwest Arkansas. It wasn't a relative. There wasn't a reason to share it, other than that it was such a great story. And the same with the catfish deaths. People died from so many different things that we don't even think about today. We don't have to worry about being in a runaway, wagon, or a terrible sawmill incident, or having our clothing set on fire while making lye soap in the yard. But people died in bizarre ways. So I think in that era, even more bizarre deaths would have interested readers, given how dangerous life was, to think that a giant catfish could drag you underwater, or the case of the metal burial case. People would have loved those kinds of stories. I suppose we would love them today too, and I'm trying to think of a modern equivalent, but